New Marvel Legend Build-A-Figures announced. The Black Widow wave takes shape. Hasbro announces more Star Wars Black Series and Vintage Collection. SH Figuarts doing more Avengers Endgame reissues, and more. So let's jump into today's news video now. Hey, all you action figure enthusiasts out there, JC here with another TNI news video. Now today is a special Sunday edition of the news video. We had some breaking news from both Paris and London with the MCM Comic Convention. Hasbro yesterday morning, very early yesterday morning I might add, they had their Marvel panel, or early for me, not early over there in Paris, but it was definitely early for me. But they revealed a couple new figures in Paris, and then this morning they revealed I should say, a few additional figures from the MCM London Comic Con. On top of that, we got some additional reveals on the Star Wars front that came from London. I'd already talked about on Friday the stuff they announced in Paris. You know, they announced that early Friday morning, so I already talked about that, as well as the Power Ranger stuff that Hasbro had on hand. But today we're going to talk about the new Marvel Legends stuff and then the additional Star Wars stuff. Also, I've got some updated information on the story I brought to you on Friday in regards to Tomasi Nations and their SH Figuarts line with the Avengers Endgame Iron Spider figure with the instant kill mode. So I've got a few additional details on that figure, and then also some additional figures that were shown off at their event, their 2019 Tomasi Nations event that they were holding this week. But before we get into that, let's hop into the Hasbro stuff. So let's start with Star Wars. So first of all, a little bit of a downer in my opinion, at least if you're a prequel fan. At Paris, you may recall, and I talked about this on Friday, they announced that they were going to have 8 different prequel figures that were in the pipeline that they were going to be announcing this week, and then at the 2 conventions, there's 2 more EU conventions next week. And so between the 4 conventions, they were going to be announcing 8 different prequel figures. Now at Paris, they announced they were doing episode 2 Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, which meant there should have been 6 more figures for them to reveal. And we were expecting that 2 of those were going to come yesterday during their panel in London, but in fact, you know, they didn't. They actually seemed to, for whatever reason, seemed to change their mind about that. And now we're saying there's only going to be a total of 6 figures revealed. So 4 more next week. So this week they revealed a couple new Rise of Skywalker figures, but nothing on the prequel front. Now I don't know exactly if that means they misspoke on Friday and there's only 6 prequel figures, not 8, or if for some reason they just decided not to announce all 8 over the course of the next 2 weeks. So unclear on that, but it looks like at least, you know, this weekend, or well, this weekend again we got the Obi-Wan and Anakin, and then next weekend we should see 4 more figures for the prequel line announced between the 2 conventions that they're having next weekend. So what exactly did they announce for Star Wars in London yesterday? Well, again, 2 new Rise of Skywalker figures for the Black Series were announced. So a Knight of Ren figure, which seemed pretty cool, and definitely some people were commenting on the knees. It looks like they're going with a little bit of a new design on the knees with this one, but overall I think it looks pretty nice. And then Zuri Bliss is the second one they're doing for the 6-inch Black Series. So they're already doing those characters for the Vintage Collection. The Knight of Ren figure looks a bit different. The 6-inch version looks different from the Vintage Collection version, but the Zuri Bliss we've already got on the Vintage Collection card back with the smaller scale. But both of those are now going to be coming in the next wave of Black Series figures, you know, and again based on Rise of Skywalker. And then for the Vintage Collection, so Friday on Paris they announced that they were going to be doing several Mandalorian, based on the Mandalorian TV series coming to Disney Plus. And so in Paris they announced the Cara Dune figure. And then yesterday in London, they announced, of course, the Mandarin himself. So, not Mandarin, Mandalorian himself. So, that was the second figure. And then they said they had 1 more. So, looks like they're only going to do 1 more figure, Vintage Collection figure right now based on the Mandalorian TV series. And that reveal should come sometime next weekend. Okay, and then on to Marvel. So, from Paris yesterday morning, they ended up announcing for a single pack release a new comic book based Winter Soldier figure. Now, they didn't specifically say how this figure or where this figure was going to be released, but most suspect, including myself, that this is probably going to be one of the first figures for the upcoming rumored Black Widow themed wave that should be out early next year. It's basically tying in with the Black Widow movie. So that wave will likely be a mix of comic and movie based figures. And my guess is this comic book based Winter Soldier figure is going to be part of that wave. So, if you've been wanting an updated comic book version of the Winter Soldier, then you're probably excited for this one. Overall, it looks pretty good. No complaints really, but can't say I've been dying for another Winter Soldier, but again, it looks pretty good overall. And then the other figure they announced in Paris yesterday was finally the Build-A-Figure for the next wave of Spider-Man figures, which will be going up for pre-order starting tomorrow on Monday, October 28th. As early as maybe midnight. I'm not sure when e-tailers are going to put it up exactly, but probably around midnight time, I would guess. And again, just to recap, the basic figures, which we've known for some time in that wave, include comic book based versions of White Rabbit, which I really like. I like when they do obscure characters like that. I think it's pretty cool. We're also getting classic Vulture. That's another must have from the wave. Superior Octopus, which is a comic book based figure, and Shang-Chi, which is the comic book version. Hasbro at San Diego had said they weren't even aware at the time they did this figure that there was going to be a movie for Shang-Chi, so it was just kind of a coincidence. And I'm sure because there's the movie coming, we will definitely be seeing more Shang-Chi related characters in future, probably seeing Shang-Chi themed waves. But right now we're getting just the basic comic book version in the Spider-Man wave. And then the final two figures in the wave are both based on the PC4 Spider-Man game, so the PlayStation game, and that's Velocity Suit Spider-Man, and then the Spider-Man Armor Mark III figure. And then finally, the Build-A-Figure is Demo Goblin. Now, the figure itself I think it looks really good. It's definitely an improvement over the previous version that we got for the Origins line. I have no complaints with the figure itself. The glider looks really cool. It looks like it's translucent fire type plastic. You get the flight stand with the figure, so you can have it so it looks like he's actually flying in the air, which is cool. The downside here, I think, in many people's eyes, though, is they don't view this character as worthy of a Build-A-Figure slot. And that's because, Demo Goblin, just like Hobgoblin and Green Goblin, are really just normal size. But I think the reason behind making it the Build-A-Figure, I'm sure cost had something to do with it, but also because the glider just wouldn't easily fit in a normal size packaging, and also the flight stand, which I'm sure they included just to kind of, spruce up the value of the figure. So, I don't know. I'm not since the figure itself I think looks pretty good, and I like the glider and everything, and I know a lot of people have been talking about wanting to use that glider with their Red Goblin figure, so you might just want, get that. I don't know for that. I don't know, but it doesn't bother me too much. I mean, I understand where people are coming from who are kind of upset that it wasn't a larger character. But again, there's going to be plenty more Build-A-Figures put out by Hasbro, so I'm sure they'll eventually get to the characters that we were thinking were maybe going to be included in this wave, as well as many others that we hadn't. Now, based on these package images for the Spider-Man wave that have surfaced via the guys at Marvel UK, it looks like the two Spider-Man PS4 Spider-Man figures will be the ones double packed in the assortment, unfortunately, and not Vulture, which is probably going to be the one in most demand. But also note here with the Vulture figure, we can see for the first time that looks like Vulture is going to have a second head sculpt. So I think that's maybe a more modern head sculpt with the headgear that we've seen him have in the in certain versions. So we'll get better quality images for these packages by tomorrow when they go out for pre-order. But I just wanted to note it looks like we hadn't seen that second head sculpt for Vulture, which is kind of interesting. And then again, unfortunately, Vulture is not going to be double packed in this wave. It's the two Spider-Man figures. Now, this morning, they announced a few additional figures. So this morning at the MCM convention, they announced another single pack figure, Spymaster, another pretty obscure character, generally thought of as an Iron Man villain. But again, this is probably going to be another figure for the upcoming Black Widow themed wave next year. That's my guess, not officially confirmed, but that is my guess both Spymaster and Winter Soldiers will be two of the comic book based figures in that Black Widow wave. And then the second figure that they revealed was the Build-A-Figure for the Fantastic Four wave, which they announced at New York Comic Con. So just to recap on that one, that wave includes all four members of the Fantastic Four, Reed, Sue, Thang, and then Johnny in his more human form, all in their more modern Fantastic Four outfits. And then the other two figures they announced for that wave include the modern She-Hulk figure and the Doctor Doom figure, which has the two different head sculpts, the more modern masked head sculpt and then the more classic masked head sculpt. And then the Build-A-Figure, as I've talked about this before, and I think many people suspected, is Super Skrull. So I think this is a really cool figure. I like how they've done it so you can have him either just in his normal appearance without mimicking any of the Fantastic Four abilities. So you've got the normal limbs, and then you also get the alternate limbs, that mimic the Fantastic Four abilities, including a second head sculpt with it as well. So Super Skrull is a little bit bigger than a normal Skrull. I know some people have been talking about, wanting to army build this guy to use as just a regular Skrull, which, I mean, if that's going to be an expensive army build. But I also think that generally Skrulls are much scrawnier looking than the Super Skrull. So I'm not sure if he really makes that great of a regular just Skrull soldier. I mean, it certainly would be doable, though. Again, trying to army build a Build-A-Figure is definitely going to be a pain in the butt. But hopefully at some point Hasbro will just release a normal Skrull that people can actually easily army build. I don't think they intended this to be an army builder figure. I could be wrong, but I don't think that was really the intention. But I do think it's a cool looking figure. I think a lot of people have been excited for getting Super Skrull. We'd seen the Super Skrull show up in the Walgreens computers. Originally, it was thought that it was going to be a Walgreens exclusive, which I think it was, but then things changed and they decided to do a full-fledged Fantastic Four wave, and so they included him as the Build-A-Figure for it. I'm sure with Fantastic Four back in Disney's wheelhouse that we will be seeing more Fantastic Four themed waves, so other Fantastic Four villains I'm sure will be due for the Build-A-Figure treatment in the foreseeable future. And like with the Spider-Man wave, the Fantastic Four wave will be going up for pre-order tomorrow, 10/28, probably at midnight. Places like Big Bad Toy Store, I'm guessing, will have it up for pre-order at midnight tonight. But again, the official pre-order date for those is tomorrow, Monday, 10/28. At London, we were also treated with an updated look at the Strong Guy Build-A-Figure. So we got an early look at this figure during San Diego Comic-Con, but now the figure has been completed and they actually had it on hand at the convention. Now this figure is the Build-A-Figure for the next X-Force themed wave, which right now we only know 3 figures. We know the Sunspot from X-Force, the X-Force version of Sunspot and Warpath, and then also the Deadpool in the blue and gold outfit will be part of that wave. And then there's at least 3 more, maybe 4 more figures, probably just 3 more figures to be revealed, which my best guess is we'll see sometime next weekend. Now, while announced on Friday in Paris, Hasbro had on display in London the third wave of Power Ranger figures, the Lightning Collection figures that I talked about on Friday with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Red Ranger, the Gold Ranger from Dino Charge, and then the blue Beast Morpher, and then the Dracon from the comic book series. So those were all on display at Paris. So just giving you a quick update look at those figures. Again, I did talk about those in more detail in Friday's news video. Now, just as I was filming this video, Hasbro made a surprise announcement at MCM. They announced the first figure in their 4th wave of Lightning Collection figures, and it's going to be the Power Rangers Zeo Blue Ranger figure. So here's a good look at that figure. Now, as for the rest of the figures in this wave, I don't expect those reveals to be made until next weekend. Again, they have 2 more EU conventions that they'll be attending, and I would imagine they'll probably reveal the remaining figures for this wave there. Now, before I get into my final story, the update to the SH Figuarts stuff, there was one other thing I wanted to bring to your guys' attention. I actually meant to talk about this on Friday, but forgot. But we got updated official images for the MAFEX Aquaman Mera figure. So this is the 3rd MAFEX figure they're doing for the Aquaman movie, we already seen and is actually already out the Aquaman figure himself, and then we've seen up for solicitation the Black Manta figure, and now we've got Mera, which we've actually seen at the conventions, but again, now we have the official images. So this figure is going to stand about 6.2 inches tall. It's due out in July 2020. It's going to have 2 different head sculpts. It's going to have several different effect pieces, water effect pieces and those red effect pieces, and then a canister as well from the movie that we saw in the movie. And again, that figure, which is up for pre-order now, is due out in July. Finally, the last story I wanted to talk about, again, was an update to one that I briefly mentioned on Friday. And that is that at their event, Tomasi Nations, at their event being held this week, they showed off some new Avengers Endgame figures, which mostly are just reissues with additional accessories. We don't have any specific details yet on these figures, which is expected to come during the Tokyo Comic-Con, which takes place in November, so late November. But the figures they had on hand, well, first of all, they had on hand the Endgame Hulk figure, which I actually think is starting to be released overseas now with the jumpsuit, and then Warrior Thor, Fat Thor in his actual uniform. So that was on hand. And then a rescue figure with her accessories. We're getting a look at her accessories with this, which is pretty cool. And then figures that look like they're reissuing with additional accessories are Captain America, which we actually saw this figure on display at San Diego Comic-Con. But looks like they're going to be adding a broken shield and Thor's hammer and some lightning effects. And then also Iron Man is looking like it's getting a re-release. So Iron Man's going to have that back piece that has attachments that looks like he's firing. He's also going to come with a translucent clear shield and then a bladed weapon as well. So definitely a much improved version over the previous one we got, which is exactly why I did not get that first Iron Man Mark 85, because I saw what they did with the Mark 50 when they released it like 3 different times. And I was like, I'm going to wait and get the version that has all the weapon accessories. Now, I unfortunately did not wait on Captain America. I went on and got the first Captain America, even though I knew that there was a good chance they were going to do this. But and I probably will get this updated version, unfortunately. And then the Iron Spider-Man figure. So I talked about this one on Friday, and it's got the red eyes for the instant kill mode. But what I didn't realize is it also looks like it's going to come with a power gauntlet and some webbing effects, so you can recreate the scene where they're trying to get the power gauntlet across the battlefield and keep it away from Thanos. So that's kind of a cool addition to that figure. So I may end up getting that one as well, even though I did get the previous Iron Spider-Man figure that they did. And in fact, mine actually broke because the little arm, the joints on the arms were very thin on that figure, and they ended up breaking on mine. So hopefully they'll maybe fortify those arm joints on the arms, on the mechanical arms, but I'll definitely be more careful with that one if I end up getting it. Okay, so that's it for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything I talked about. Either comment in the comment section below or head over to the Marvelous News message boards. We've got discussions on all these reveals going on over there. And of course, when you comment over there, there's a good chance people like Hasbro will actually see your comments, because they do monitor those message boards and look for your feedback there. So not only do we give away $100 store credits on Marvelous News and their message boards, but you also might have a better chance of your voice being heard if you want to voice some kind of input. Any input that you leave, I'd make it constructive. Don't tell them they suck. But definitely, if you want to give feedback, they do read those message boards and listen to your comments there. All right, guys. So that's it for today. Like the video if you're so inclined. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later.
Hey, thanks for watching today's video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification so alerted every time I upload a new video. And be sure to head over to the Toy News International and Marvelous News message boards communities. It's a great place to talk toys and win cool contests like $100 store credits to Big Bad Toy Store. And remember, action figures are great.